Alright, so this video is going to be a little different. Halo finally got its release gameplay trailer thing, and I personally think it looks great. At first, I was kind of feeling like it didn't look like Halo. It didn't really feel like Halo. But after looking at the equipment system a little more, it feels like it's going to feel a lot like Halo 3, which is going to be amazing because that is clearly one of the best, if not the best, Halo game. So I did kind of a frame by frame on the video and picked out images that I thought were kind of interesting. So I'm going to go into those now. So first up we have this. And in particular, a lot of people were complaining about how simplified the guns look. And I can agree with that. There is clearly something going on with the lighting that is not done yet. You guys know I'm a game developer, so of course I'm looking at this stuff. It looks like something isn't baked, or they're not using ambient occlusion. I'm not sure what it is, but something is missing. People were also complaining about the textures on the actual weapons, but I think that a lot of that came from just these streams people watched. If you actually watch the 4K footage, it looks phenomenal. Like this image right here on the gun, you can see rust or just machining marks on the gun itself. It looks fantastic. There's also little wrinkles in Chief's gloves from bending and stretching the rubberized material. Pretty nice touch. Not only that, there's of course another compass on the screen of the assault rifle, and a smaller little touch, if you look closely, it says S-117. This rifle belongs to the Chief. Also interesting in this picture is this heads-up display on the left. The game is clearly open world, and it's going to be extremely weird being able to pick missions in a Halo game. We'll get to that in a minute, though. This is another example. I think that the graphics actually look fine. If you watch the 4K version, it looks great. The detailing on Chief's gloves and the actual machining on the assault rifle itself looks fantastic. The animations look really good as well. Something particularly interesting in this shot is where you can pick up the plasma pistol. There's more information underneath of the weapon itself. It says pistol, plasma, and charge. Almost as if you're going to be able to upgrade certain parts of that, or maybe it's just to give you more of a understanding of what the weapon is before you actually pick it up. I can't really imagine what else it would be for. The water reflections also look really nice in my opinion. They did say that ray tracing is not in yet, and again, being a game developer, I personally think ray tracing is kind of gimmicky at this point, but we'll see when the new cards come out, if it can actually support it as well as people think it will. People were also saying that Chief's armor looked way too clean, but I think maybe that's just from far away, because if you look here, there's like discoloration on his wrist, and it looks pretty good, in my opinion. I also happen to love this shield recharging animation. There's like a hexagon that goes in around your screen, and it looks really nice. There's a lot of really good animations in this demo. We have here, of course, a Phantom. It looks pretty interesting. I think someone said it was a banished Phantom. I never played Halo Wars 2, not really my style, but it looks pretty good. I like it. The Warhog. It looks fantastic. There's a lot of detail on the outside and on the inside, but that being said, I do kind of hate the way it sounds. Looks a lot better from the back, to be honest. It just kind of sounds like a wimpy little Jeep or something. It doesn't sound visceral like a Warhog usually does. Here's another example of the reflections over here in the water as well. You can see that rock reflecting off the water. It looks really nice. Here we get into the actual map, which is crazy that Halo is going to have this map system type thing like an open world game. And it clearly is going to be open world, but it's still so strange to see. You can also see it's a little cut off on the bottom here because of how I had to crop the image, but you can set waypoints, zoom in on the map, and view different missions. There's also a right thumbstick click for the player, so I wonder if we're going to be able to have multiple players in the same instance of a game world and you could swap between those players to see where they are. Overall, this looks really cool. Of course, there's also, it says TAC map, upgrades, and database. Upgrades is what's most intriguing to me. What are we going to be upgrading? Can we upgrade how fast we can reuse equipment, like the grappling hook, which we'll get to that soon, because it seems to have a certain cooldown amount. Can we upgrade just the looks of stuff? What can we upgrade? It looks... I'm excited to find out. Now, this is interesting too. What does all this mean? The first icon over here with the star, I'm guessing is the XP or something you get for actually completing this section. There's also the sword and shield icon, which is, of course, the normal difficulty setting. So does this mean there's going to be different difficulty setting things in the open world that you can't pick a difficulty for? Like, there's going to be some missions that are heroic difficulty and some that are easy, some that are normal. Also, I have no idea what the one next to it could be or the one beside that. This is sort of a similar thing, but it's just the actual gun battery east. And it shows that star with a 0320, which has to be experience or something. What else could that be? Which, it makes perfect sense if that's what it is for an open world type of game. Here we have the north. It looks exactly the same as the other one. And the west. And here we have a zoomed in view. Looks pretty interesting. A lot of people were complaining about these hexagon geometric shapes in the map and on the actual world itself. But I kind of wonder if people realize that those shapes exist in nature. It's not just a Halo thing. People were comparing it to like Minecraft, which is ridiculous. Like these shapes over here on the left, those hexagon things exist in nature. Like, these things are real, they exist, and they're caused by volcanic activity in certain areas of the world. I can't remember where off the top of my head, but they do exist in nature. Here we have a suicide grunt. There seem to be a lot of suicide grunts in this demo. Maybe they had a skull turned on or something, who knows. And there goes a suicide grunt. Funny enough, it looks like Chief didn't take any damage at all from the suicide grunt blowing up underneath the Warhog. We also didn't see anything fly off the Warhog that I'm aware of. Pretty interesting. Although we do see these hexagon shapes showing that he's taking some kind of damage on the outer edges of the screen. Here's our first real up-close look at what a grunt looks like in Halo Infinite. They look kind of like Halo Reach grunts a little bit. Maybe a combination between them and Halo 3's grunts. This is what I'm talking about too. There is a lot of detail on this armor. Like, there's like rust-looking things, there's scratches, there's just places where the paint is coming chipped off. I also love this little damage indicator right here in the center of the crosshair. It looks pretty nice. Here's a view of a secondary weapon, the MK50 Sidekick. I thought it was just the original pistol at first, but it looks pretty good for what it is. A lot of people were saying how bad this pistol looks, but I kind of like it myself. And we'll see in a minute how detailed it really is. There's actually a lot of detail in these gun models. Here we see Chief throw a grenade, and of course we see the grappling hook attached to his left wrist. Kinda makes me wonder if we're going to be able to attach equipment to other parts of our body, or if it's going to be able to be removed. I am of course only talking about the campaign. We know nothing about multiplayer yet, except for equipment is going to be able to be picked up on the map. That doesn't really mean anything though. Elites in Halo Infinite are like oddly shiny. Also can't figure out what this second bar is supposed to represent. You have the energy bar for the energy shields up top, but then there's this secondary colored bar beneath it that I thought was health, but it seems to regenerate on its own. And then I thought it was stamina for like a sprinting system, but it doesn't seem to be used up when that happens either. So I'm not sure what it really is. I've seen so many weird complaints online about the demo so far. I'm sure a lot of people have been looking around the forums and looking on Twitter and stuff. And I've seen someone complain that there was no blood from enemies. That makes zero sense. A lot of purple blood right here. It's also a really nice animation how the shields pop. I like it a lot. Here we get another view of a different weapon. This time it's the Pulse Carbine, which again underneath it says Assault Rifle, Plasma, and Burst Fire. We get a closer look at this weapon later on, but that's what we have so far. This weapon looks amazing to me. When I seen this in the demo, I loved it. The VK-78 Commando, tactical rifle, kinetic, and auto. the thing looks really good. I love the paint job on it, and in a second you'll see the actual details on the gun. But first, after switching to the VK78, we see the actual name of the assault rifle is the MA40AR. So that's interesting. This tells me maybe there's going to be a lot of different variants of guns in this game, which would be awesome. Here's our first kind of side view look at the VK78. It looks pretty nice. I like the scope. I like how it seems to fire. It seems like it's only automatic, but maybe it's something sort of like, I don't know, it almost seemed like a DMR when they were using it, but it's also automatic. Pretty cool. Here we see the zoomed in, and it's actually a 3x zoom. Now, I'm not sure if this is just the animation, or if it has a variable zoom rate, because in this next image, the player is zooming out, and it's at 1.6x instead of 3. That could just be the animation zooming in and out, or it could be that it's variable zoom, which would be really cool in a Halo game. Usually we get things like 2x or 10x with the sniper rifle, but we've never had a variable zoom. This is what I'm talking about. Look at the side of this gun. The detail on it is amazing. There's a serial number, there's the caliber, the weapon, a name, all the little knobs and stuff. It looks great. And the reloading looks great too. This picture's even clearer. You can see the serial number clearly. You can see the actual caliber of the round, of course the name, a little bit of scuff marks on the actual loading mechanism. This is just an image in the middle of the actual shield recharge sequence. In addition to the outer edges having that hexagon shape, the actual bar at the top does that kind of classic glowing effect when it refills the bar. It just looks nice. I'm a sucker for a good animation, man. Here we see this brute drop pod before it bursts open. Funny enough, in the video, if you go frame by frame, I didn't capture this, maybe I should have. But being a game designer, of course, this is funny to think about. Clearly, what they're doing is dropping down the pod, and then it swaps the model to a different version that doesn't actually have a door. And you can see it for one frame of the video. The door disappears entirely. You can see the inhabitant inside, and then the door comes back and then blows off the hinges. It's pretty funny from a game designer point of view. Here's the actual image of the door blowing off. The particle effects so far look really nice. I've seen a lot of complaints about those too. People say they didn't last long enough on screen. And I could definitely get with that. That makes sense. I could agree with that. The animations look great. Brutes always have this rage thing inside of them. It looks so comic book villain. And it's just fantastic. I really like it. And of course we see him get stuck, which is awesome. The armor is pretty interesting as well. Of course the armor pieces fall off when they get hit. They have these like spiky things on their wrists. I kind of wonder what those are. Or if maybe that's just because they do increased damage when they melee you. Ah, look at the detail on the gun down in the right hand corner too. When it's right up close in 4K, it looks so good. And of course here's the actual grenade blowing up that the brute was stuck with. The effects look really nice. I don't know about you, but it looks like plasma to me. And of course, this image. This game is going to create so many meme-worthy moments. It looks great. This is another thing that I'm talking about. Even though the character looks kind of goofy, which I could agree with, look at the rust on the gun. And people were saying this doesn't look good. There's rust on the gun. What? Of course, the brute looks like Play-Doh or something, but it's hard to get aliens right, I guess. Here we see a really nice reloading animation, and we see that things in the world tend to be outlined, like things you can interact with. The spike grenades over there are outlined. The VK78 over there is outlined. Things you can pick up are outlined, kind of like in Halo 3 ODST. And of course, this is one of the most exciting parts right here, the drop wall. Equipment is back. It's going to be like Halo 3, it seems like, and that is amazing, because the equipment system in Halo 3 created so many moments for emergent gameplay. Like the video that was floating around on Twitter a while back, where somebody was inside of a bubble shield. The person runs up, throws down a grav lift, the bubble shield flies up in the air, and then the person that was inside the bubble shield just gets sniped right through the face. That can't happen with armor abilities. It just can't. Not that I hate armor abilities. Halo Reach is probably a very close second game for me. It's still one of the best Halos in my opinion. Here we see in the bottom right-hand corner, when you pick up an equipment in the field, it looks like it replaces your actual grapple hook. So we have this kind of square-looking icon for the actual drop shield. That tells me we're not going to be able to use our grapple hook if we have other equipment equipped. That being said, the grapple hook is still there, attached to Chief. That's interesting. Even more so, we can pick up fusion coils. There's also, of course, this is just an image so you can't see it, but there's a really, really nice animation for when you pick up an equipment. Like it says right here, drop wall acquired. It's a little slow, to be honest. Like, it seems like the actual notification animation is several seconds behind you actually picking up the drop wall, which is kind of strange, but that's probably just something they gotta polish up. We see here, we throw down the drop wall right in the center of the screen. You can see the little boxes start to pop up, and you can see the spike grenade incoming. You can also see, as soon as you put down the drop wall, the equipment flips back to being the grapple hook, which furthers my idea previously that we're always going to have the grapple hook, but you won't be able to use it if you have other equipment on you. I also wonder how many different equipments there are going to be. Are there going to be other things that are somewhat permanent, like the grapple hook? It's also very unlikely that the grapple hook is going to be permanent in multiplayer. That would seem pretty broken to me, but we'll have to see. And the actual drop wall itself looks really good. It looks like a combination of the drop shield from Halo 3 combined with the bubble shield. You could fire through the drop shield in Halo 3, and it would block incoming bullets, of course, but it was small. The bubble shield, you couldn't fire through, but it surrounded you entirely. This looks like it surrounds most of you in the front, and you can fire through it, as we can see in this next picture. Well, sort of. There's a lot of effects going on the screen, but the player is firing through the drop shield, which you can tell because the damage notification indicator right in the center of the crosshair. Here we just see a piece of the armor flying off. The Brute's helmet has come off its head, which makes sense if you shoot it in the head enough. Same thing happened in Halo 3, or pretty much all the Halos. If you shoot them, well, after Halo 3 at least. Halo 3, Halo Reach, all of them did that. If you shoot certain parts of armor, pieces of it would fly off. And the same thing happens here, and it looks fine. Now here's where we see the first time we're actually using the grapple hook to grapple onto an enemy and pull ourselves closer to them. That's going to fuel so many cool things, so many cool moments in gameplay. Sure, getting to do like high places and picking up things with the grapple hook is fantastic, like we see with the fusion coil later, but being able to grapple onto enemies and pull yourself toward them to melee them or grenade stick them, whatever, it's gonna do some really cool stuff. Even more so, think about multiplayer. There were videos floating around years ago from Halo 3 where somebody would stick a rocket in the air with like a plasma grenade, and while the rocket was still flying through the air, it would get blown up by the plasma grenade. I wonder if you could do something ridiculous, like actually catch a rocket out of the air or a grenade with the grapple hook. I also don't really know why you would do that, saying as it would kill you, but you should be able to. We also see here, in addition to the spike grenade being thrown at the Brute, on the bottom right, there is a reloading or a recharging cooldown, maybe that's the right word, on the grapple hook. You see now it says grapple hook 0, but there's a little tiny wedge of just an animation that's filling up slowly. I actually timed it, and all times that the grappling hook is fired during this demo, it takes 8 seconds for it to recharge, I guess, or for the cooldown to be done. Which, 8 seconds is a weird time to me. Why not 10 seconds or 7 seconds? Why 8? That's weird, but whatever. Also, I didn't notice this until now, but you can see the Brute's fingernail, and that just looks gross. The Brute also appears to have a jetpack or a jump pack like in Halo 3, which is pretty awesome. Although, I don't exactly like flying Brutes, but whatever. It's cool that it's in the game. And of course, here we see the glorious explosion of the spike grenade on the Brute. The spike grenade was one of my favorite grenades in Halo 3, in particular. It was just a really cool... It had really cool functionality. Like, it could stick to things just like a plasma grenade, but you could kill someone with the spikes just as much as you could kill someone with the actual explosion. So if someone was coming around a wall and you knew there was no way you were going to be able to stick them, you could stick the wall, and then the spikes would kill them. It's just a different It's all about the sandbox and the possibilities within it. Here we have a view of another weapon in the game, the Ravager. It's a launcher, plasma, and burst. And here's the actual gun itself. It looks spiky, like most Brute weapons. I really hope the Brute Spiker makes a comeback in Halo Infinite. The Brute Spiker was an unsung hero of Halo 3. That weapon is amazing in multiplayer, it's good in the campaign, it's just all around good. It's okay against the Flood even. It's fantastic. I love the Brute Spiker. I hope it's back in. Here we see a side profile of the gun. The textures look a little strange here. There's like some machining on the right-hand side here, looking kind of like a polish. And then there's sort of some scuff marks on the top. It doesn't look bad. The crosshair is also pretty strange. It's kind of like a Brute shot almost, how it's got the dots and everything because it curves. Here we see the animation for reloading the MK50 sidekick. And also the detail on this weapon is amazing. How can anyone say this doesn't look awesome? Like, you see the actual details of the gun itself, the MK50 sidekick, 10mm caliber, a serial number, the actual bullets in the cartridge. It looks great. I really think that a lot of the complaints were coming from people who just watched the live stream and didn't watch the 4K. That being said, like, I can understand how some people might say it looks too smooth or something. Like, maybe it's not rough enough, but even that, I don't know, because look at the slide in between the actual gun body itself and the slide. There is clear scratch marks from where it's been sliding back and forth. It looks fantastic. The same thing on the clip itself. There's scratch marks from where it's been slid in and out. And of course, the side profile of the weapon too just looks great. I keep using that word, but honestly, I did not like this when I first watched it. But then I went back and watched the 4K version several times over, and it's growing on me a lot. Not only that, you can also see here the finished cooldown for the grapple hook. You notice it's glowing kind of like a blue color, which animations look nice. I like animations. And here we get just the down the sights kind of side view of the MK50 sidekick. It looks nice. There's like a foundry symbol on the back, which is pretty interesting. I think some people pointed that out already. It looks pretty good. It's also kind of, there's like a texture to the Chief's gloves. Like, there's like this rubberized material look. I'm not totally sure how I feel about that. It looks a little plasticky or something, but rubbery. I don't know how I feel about it. It looks, I don't know. Here, of course, we have right bumper to activate, little panel thing, which is going to take us up. That's nothing new. Here we see us starting to ascend the elevator, and it really shows you how big the world they're trying to make is the further we go up. Also, there's some really nice lighting effects here. There's like a red glow that's casting onto the gun and onto Chief's armor. It looks nice. It's going to look even better when the lighting is finished, because quite frankly, it's clearly not in this demo. There's also some weird popping in issues with the materials. In particular, up here on this mountain peak, the fog pops in and out between these pictures. So like right here, it's there, and if we go to the next picture, it's there, but it's like different. It like pops in and out. You can really see it better in the video, but people complaining about that is kind of strange to me. Like, sure, it's immersion breaking, but particle effects like that way off in the distance, or, you know, effects like that in general, aren't the easiest thing to pull off far away like that. I really want to see the technology behind this engine. I hope they do a deep dive into it. I'm pretty impressed so far with what they're doing with it. Here are some birds. All the wildlife in the game looks really nice. You have these birds, you like those rat things running around. It's just a nice touch. We can also see over there in the distance, this halo ring is either not complete or it's damaged. I don't know which one it is. I'm guessing it's not complete, which would explain why we see so much of the hexagon shape, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And of course, there's a bird sitting on a pedestal right there. It's just a nice little touch. Here's another front view of that Phantom. Doesn't look bad. Looks very menacing, looks very Brute. You know, Brutes, all their stuff is very sharp and angular, which is, it matches because they're very vicious enemies. Here we see a jackal strutting along, completely unaware. And of course, as soon as the chief fires a few bullets at him, he pulls out the shield. Unsurprising. I hate jackals so much. Here we just see the pop-up for the venting that you need to do for the Ravager. It looks fine, you know. There's the actual venting animation. It looks pretty cool. The red particle effect instead of like the classic blue-purple particle effect coming off when you have to vent like a plasma rifle or something. It looks nice, and it matches the Brute style. In the video, you can actually see over here in the right, in this little hangar type thing where there's enemies, not the grunt in the foreground, but in the background, the Brute either picks up and throws or kicks the grunt, which of course leads to this terrifying view, a flying suicide grunt. Those things are terrible. I hate suicide grunts so much, because they catch you by surprise so easily. It looks like clambering is back from like Halo 5, where you can like get up a wall or something. In the video, you can see the Chief kind of move sideways and use his hand to get up on top of this little crate or whatever this thing is. I kind of like that and I kind of don't. It's like increased mobility, but also kind of like pointless, because isn't that supposed to be like the point of the grapple hook, is for increased mobility? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with other increased mobility aspects of the game. Here's a view of the Pulse Carbine. We seen a view of this earlier as just a pop-up, but we didn't actually pick it up in the video. So it looks pretty nice. It looks like a Covenant Carbine mixed with like a plasma rifle or a plasma repeater from Reach or something. Here's the side view of it, and it looks very Covenant, of course. It's got some nice detail on it. It looks very alien, very bulky. Here's the actual firing of it. Here's another grunt that looks like it's getting either thrown or maybe it's just jumping. I don't know. Those things are small. Do they really have the leg power to jump like that? I don't think so. And you see the Brute is lifting its arm up, which makes me think that it is just throwing it. More suicide grunts. There are so many in this demo. We also get kind of a close-up of this different Brute armor. It's like blue, which is... It looks really strange on a Brute. It looks like it's stolen elite armor or something that they makeshift fashioned onto themselves. This weapon right here is intriguing to me. It looks like the human equivalent of something like the Mauler from Halo 3. Another Brute weapon. The Brutes has some really cool weapons. The Mauler was a cool gun. Like, by itself, it was like a weakened shotgun, and then if you dual-wielded them, it was equivalent to a shotgun. It was cool. Looks even better in the hand. I haven't mentioned it yet, but you can also see the waypoint system right here in the center of the screen. It also looks like you're going to be able to set waypoints to pretty much anywhere you want to, or at least certain objective areas, which is going to be weird for a Halo game. Because usually you have Cortana or just the game or whatever telling you where to go if you're like lost or whatever. But being able to set your own waypoints is going to be interesting. There was some button pressed here that brought up the UI on the top left to show your objectives. It also puts this weird haze over everything. It reminds me of the visor view from Halo 3 ODST. That could just be the animation though. Here's another view of Chief using the grapple hook. Looks fine. It looks like, to me, we're going to be able to use the grapple hook on basically any surface. I wonder how far the distance is. Like, do you get... What happens if you try to do it out in the open, you know? Does it just fail to fire? Or does it fire and then just come back? Like, how does that work? I can't wait to find out more about this. I never thought I'd be a fan of a grapple hook in Halo. It seems like such a dumb idea. What are we, Batman? But it seems like it's going to work out very well. Again, I timed this here during the demo. It does take 8 seconds for it to recharge after using it. Here's just another view of the grappling hook when you're close to the top of the cliff. This is when the grappling hook actually gets put away. Chief does like this hand clenching thing. It's very, very Halo. Like, Chief is always doing that fist clenching thing for some reason. I don't know. It looks cool, I guess. Here we see a different type of grunt. Looks very scaly. We also see a shade turret up there in the right-hand corner. It's a little different than previous shade turrets. And instead of having the blue kind of Covenant energy shield thing, it has the same kind of... It looks like the same material that's on a drop shield. Which makes me question if drop shields in this game, or drop wall, sorry, if a drop wall is actually an equipment that's a Covenant equipment, or I guess a banished equipment. I probably shouldn't say Covenant, but whatever, aliens. Here we see, finally, how deadly the Mangler is. The thing looks incredible. I want to use this gun. Here's another example of the detail on these weapons, too. Like, there's rust or some type of grain material on the grip of the gun, and there's also scratches and dents on the actual slide mechanism itself on the top of the gun. Well, it's not really a slide, but on the top of the gun. And of course, it holds 8 bullets, and it's like a revolver, kind of. Here's a view of the actual rounds dropping out. You would not want these things coming at you. They look terrifying. I love it. Here's the actual reload animation for this. You actually insert all the bullets at one time using this device thing, whatever it is. It's not a super slow reload weapon, it looks like, which is awesome. I cannot wait to get my hands on whatever this thing is. Here we see Chief grapple onto a fusion coil and pull it towards himself. This is strange to me because that's a hook or like a pointy piece of metal. Wouldn't that just blow the fusion coil up? I mean, in all honesty, you pierce those things with anything and they explode, but for the sake of gameplay, it makes sense. Here's the view of it actually getting pulled towards Chief. It looks really cool. I got nothing else to say about this. It just looks great. How you can pull it towards yourself. It's going to fuel a lot of really cool gameplay moments. I can only imagine the kind of custom games that are going to be available in Halo Infinite that are going to use the grappling hook heavily. We're going to see some crazy stuff. And of course, here we see that your weapon is replaced with the fusion coil in the right-hand corner. Your weapon indicator changes from being the Mangler, or whatever your weapon is, to the fusion coil. And of course, Chief holds it like it's a football or something. And you can just completely yeet it at the enemy. It's fantastic. There it goes after throwing it. I kind of wonder how far you can throw it, too. Or, I don't know, I wonder how throwing things is going to work in the game. I also wonder if you're only going to be able to throw things like the fusion coils. How many things did they program in that you can pick up and throw? Can I throw a crate? Can I use the grapple hook to grab like an ammo crate and pull it towards myself to block incoming fire? Can I do that? I hope so, because that sounds awesome. And of course, there goes the shields on the Shade turret. It's a pretty weird effect there. It's got like a blue glow around it. I didn't notice that until just now, actually. I guess that's actually the shields popping. It's just the animation for the actual shields on the turret popping. Here we have a view that's kind of blurry. I don't know what's going on with this image, but of throwing a spike grenade. I love the spike grenade so much. And of course, here we can get inside the Shade turret. Again, the material for the actual shield around the turret looks like the same kind of material on the drop wall. So I kind of wonder if we're going to see more of that type of material instead of the classic kind of blue Halo shield material, kind of like what the Jackals use. I wonder if this is going to be more common. And of course, here's a view of us inside the Shade turret. It looks like a Shade turret. I mean, I don't really know what to say. Here's a view of another weapon, the CQS-48 Bulldog. Oh yeah, another shotgun. This one is drum-fed. It looks great. And it says shotgun, kinetic, and spread. Again, I'm so curious, why is that information there? Like, maybe it's good for new players, or if you want like a quick assessment of a weapon before you pick it up. I mean, traditionally, like for me at least, if I encounter a new weapon in Halo, or any game for that matter, I just pick it up and fire it. So maybe it's just for information. Here's the actual shotgun itself. It looks fantastic. It's got a very large crosshair. You gotta get that spread, This brute has no idea what's coming. I noticed this during the video as well. In the video, when the player's walking towards this area, there is another Mangler laying on the ground, which of course usually would mean you're going to pick up more ammo for the Mangler, or whatever your weapon is, when you walk over it. And in previous games, you would get like a notification saying you picked up this many rounds or whatever, but we don't appear to actually have that. What we do have is in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll notice that the actual icon for the Mangler as your secondary weapon has started glowing a different color. I guess as sort of a notification that you picked up more ammo. But it kind of doesn't make sense that it doesn't tell you how many rounds. I guess you would have to switch to the Mangler and actually look. Seems like a weird design choice for UI. Yeah, this thing looks great. You can see where it was made, you can see 12 gauge, you can see the actual model number, there's a serial number up here. I don't see how anyone is saying these guns look bad. They look phenomenal. And of course, here's another view of the grappling hook, using it to grapple onto an enemy, this time an elite, and just pulling ourselves towards it. That's so cool. And of course, here we just have the nice particle animation effect of the grav lift. Looks pretty nice. And of course we have this, it's just Chief touching a button. One of those animated sequences during the game, just like in Halo 3 or any of the Halos, you know, when you get control taken away from the player and Chief does something. I will say, the texture on this surface looks bad. Like, I get it's supposed to look like metal that's like rusted and old, but at the same time it looks pixelated. I wonder if that's just from the movement of the camera, or if maybe some areas just didn't get as much attention as others. Of course, maybe they didn't think people would be going through and doing frame by frames of this video, but I'm almost an hour into this video right now, and yeah, I'm enjoying every frame of this. And of course, here's this dude. A lot of people were saying how bad the brutes look, like the skin material. The humans obviously look great. The pilot guy that's with you, his materials and like the actual fidelity of the model itself looks phenomenal. My guess would be the reason why the brutes look so strange is because, I mean, brutes aren't real that we know of. There's no way to model a brute on a real brute. So of course it looks a little strange. I mean, it looks fine. There's some like pores and stuff on his face. There's some weird wrinkles, but it does kind of look like clay. It doesn't look as bad as like Halo 3's faces compared to now, but it's not as bad as some people are saying it is. It looks a lot better in the 4K footage. That being said, there is a depth of field thing going on where his face is in view and like his armor, like his shoulders are out of view. I hate depth of field with a burning passion. All developers need to stop using it. It looks bad. There's no way to make depth of field look good. I know I'm in a minority here, but I will die on this hill. I hate depth of field. People were also complaining about his hair, though. Like how it looked matted or like not. It didn't look like strands of hair. But in the 4K footage or in this picture, I think it looks great. Alright, now this picture is not from the actual gameplay demo itself. This is from a different video. I can't remember what the name of this one was, but it's like the 1-minute video they put on the Halo YouTube channel. But we get a picture of the actual Halo energy sword, and it looks great, as we would imagine. It looks fine. I got nothing else to say about it. It looks great. There's the glowing around the blade, of course. The actual handle itself looks really good. And of course here, in that same other video, we see a different view of a drop wall on the left over here. So we can see it's kind of curved around the player, or whoever deploys it, obviously. And in the same clip, you see us grapple onto that log right there. I didn't capture that. Maybe I should have, but we've seen a lot of the grapple hook. More importantly, though, battle rifle. The battle rifle looks incredible, with the exception, you can't see anything through the scope. It's not lit at all. Like, there's no light passing through the end of the scope at all. Like, usually there'd be some kind of, I don't know, light passing through, or you'd see like a slight view of things zoomed in through it, but it doesn't look like that's the case. Either way, battle rifle looks great. I love it. Here's just another image of one of the suicide grunts flying through the air. Absolutely terrifying. Again, with this weird depth of field, I hate it. But looks pretty good. Those things are so weird looking. They have weird feet and scaly legs and skin. It's just, ugh. No wonder the Covenant used them as cannon fodder. This right here too. This equipment, or maybe it's a type of grenade. It kind of looks like it could be either one. Like, it's small enough to be a grenade, but it also looks like it might be an equipment. And it looks like it puts out like an electromagnetic pulse or something. It's not really that. It's more like it shocks the enemies. You'll see in the next screenshot. But this reminds me of the power drain in Halo 3. You know, the ball, the blue, you put it out and it drains the shields from everything. It's similar to that. Except the power drain did not do this. This like electrocutes enemies and makes them freeze in place for you to, I guess, more easily get around them or shoot them. And that was actually the last picture I had. I originally did not think that the game looked good. Even right here, this image, the armor looks way too pristine. I get that. But that's from far away. If you look up close with like a first-person view, it looks great. Some people say it looks cartoony, but I don't think Halo has ever really been about ultra-realistic graphics. Halo 3's graphics still pretty much hold up today. Of course, not the facial animations or any of that stuff, but like the actual armor and the weapons and stuff, they all look fine. I mean, sure, they're lower resolution, but they look fine for what they are. They've held up extremely well. I'm still holding out to hope we get like a Halo 3 remaster at some point, just like we got Halo CE and Halo 2, but that's unlikely. Overall, though, I think that the game looks fantastic. I'm super excited to see what we have coming from multiplayer. They said in the months ahead, or maybe they said the month ahead for multiplayer, so maybe we'll see something about multiplayer next month. It's a little strange we didn't get anything about a demo or a beta or anything like that. We should have really got some kind of announcement for a multiplayer beta. But if they're waiting to announce the multiplayer details for another event or something, it makes sense that we don't have the multiplayer beta yet, obviously. Seems like a weird way to do that, but I guess it's a good way to draw up hype. And due to the equipment system alone, I am hyped. I cannot wait for this. Anyway, this has been a very different kind of video, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.